A17 amendment. Senator Dibble, your amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to withdraw the A17 amendment if I could.
Senator Dibble withdraws the A17 amendment.
And Mr. Chair, I would like to offer the A20 amendment.
Senator Dibble offers the A20 amendment. And members, the amendment should be in your packet. Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. And first, let me start by saying thank you to a number of the people who are with us today in the audience and or listening in for working pretty hard over the last end of the week and over the weekend and taking a look at the proposal in the A17 and offering some suggestions for improvements to this. And I think the A20 is a better amendment than the A17 was, so I appreciate the work. Just to describe some of the changes, I think, just generally speaking, it just makes the approach, it fulfills my initial goal, which is to make sure that the study is both thorough and objective. It provides for, if in fact an RFP isn't going to work out, it provides for just a direct sole sourcing, if you will, hiring an objective entity to conduct the study. Still provides for some of the additional elements that I was interested in making sure that we examine, stakes out some language that might tilt the nature of the objectivity of that analysis. And then I know that Senator Matthews had a few items that were added. You can see those in paragraphs 15, 16, and 17. And then there was one major piece around the comparative analysis that was, pretty stringent and probably more left to integrated resource planning process, at which time that we might consider, one source of generation over another. That's what the IRP process is for. Happy to respond to questions.
Thank you, members. Any questions or comments? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Dibble. Folks, we had some very hard work done over the last few days since this committee came back together. Again, I want to commend both Senator Dibble and Senator Matthews for the participation. Also, thanks to many stakeholders, including labor, MREA, and others. This is how it goes sometimes. We made a promise that we'd rather get it done right than get it done in a hurry, and the author of this omnibus bill considers this a very friendly amendment. Thank you.
Members, Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. So, yeah, my involvement was in some of the discussion sides with this, and I did say that I wanted a couple of items that were in it, but I was not at the point over the weekend that I was committing either way on this. So I do agree that I think this amendment is better than the one that we had before, but with how we've pared it back to this point, I then go back to my question, why don't we just stick with the language that we have in the original bill? That's what we have, that's what got worked on over in the other body. That's what got worked on and discussed when we had our hearing here in the Senate a couple of weeks ago. So that's kind of my position here, though I'm glad that we have this amendment versus the last one. I'm reading it over and I'm kind of at the point of we should just keep sticking with the language that is in the bill because I have a sense that this may just try to be an effort to ensure that some study language does not, in fact, get passed in this session after we've made a lot of progress in the last few years and had gotten to the point that we're at. So I'm still more in favor of leaving the language that's in the underlying bill versus the A20, but I will highlight that I think it's better than last week's A17.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Yeah, I think Senator Matthews hit on a couple of things I was thinking. Wasn't the current language that's in the bill, wasn't that agreed on with the House?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Gruenhagen. The principal architect of the original language was collaboration led by Prairie Island Indian Community, which the chair considered absolutely essential, or I could not support the study in any way. The House language took that language at the outset, and to my knowledge, that's where they still are. In talking with Senator Dibble and talking with Senator Matthews, in my opinion, the amendment goes on today in order to make the bill pass out of committee and go to finance. And those that are in the Nuclear Alliance want to see this bill go forward with this study language in it. Since they collaborated, including Prairie Island and Labor, that's enough for me. But to your question, the language didn't originate in the House. It was given to both House and Senate. It is true that the House language reflects the Prairie Island collaboration at the beginning.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, thank you, Senator Frentz. So is this amendment is going to be different than the House language then, if we add this, correct?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, Senator, first of all, this is Senator Matthews' bill on the nuclear study, which is being incorporated here for you today as part of my omnibus bill. So at the moment we're at, folks, there is no House omnibus bill that's at a hearing. I do, for the first time, have a House file number for what they say might be their omnibus bill, but they have not moved it out of any committees. And in talking with them, I have to watch what I say here, Senator Gruenhagen. I'm not positive the House will be moving an omnibus bill. So the nuclear study is in this bill. It's my intention to vote yes on it for that reason, but to be continued on the House.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Yeah, I guess I wish there was more agreement between the House and the Senate on this. And I hate to put something in that might endanger the passage of it in conference committee. And so I'm a little reluctant to support this. If the original language was agreed on by Prairie Island and is at least tentatively supported over in the House. But anyway, those are just my thoughts. Thank you.
Senator Matthews.
Mr. Chair, just directly to that question, I'll answer Senator Gruenhagen's question directly. Yes, adopting this language will make our version different than the House language currently.
Senator Rarick, then Senator Dibble. Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I mean, I'll take it another step further. It was just stated that this is Senator Matthews' bill that's included in our omnibus. One, this amendment changes that. And two, we were told the language that came forward in this bill is not the language Senator Matthews wanted to bring forward. But we were told the agreement was made and that was the deal. So an author's amendment that would have come forward to put the bill in the language that Senator Matthews really wanted would have been different than what's here. But we were told that wasn't the deal, we couldn't do it. And now we're changing the deal. I don't get it, Mr. Chair. There are a number of things today that you're going to hear from me that just have me completely opposed to this bill in front of us today.
Senator Dibble.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to request a roll call on this amendment.
A roll call being requested. A roll call will be given. Senator Frentz.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Senator Dibble.
Sorry, I didn't go quickly enough. I just wanted to say, as far as the House and what's going to end up in the bill in the House, I mean, I'm not sure. I'm not a party to that conversation over in the House. I do know that folks who worked on modifying the A17 that makes it into the A20 today have been talking to the folks over in the House. I have been speaking with the person who leads the Democratic effort over in the House, and that person is very much wanting this language in the bill over there. So when we're talking about the House, remember, we're talking about legislators, all of whom have election certificates, all of whom have a vote and get to decide whether or not language like this is going to make it into their version as well, and they want this language or what closely approximate this language as well. So as long as we're talking about what the House is doing, the A20 would be getting much closer to what's going to emerge in the House bill.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks for the discussion. Members, this is now roll called. I'm going to be a yes vote on the amendment because I think it reflects the best chance to move the nuclear discussion forward. Members are obviously free to vote what they think is best for their districts. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, and with that, staff will take the roll.
Chair Frentz,
Yes.
Senator Zhang,
Yes.
Senator Matthews,
No.
Senator Green, Senator Dibble, Senator Gruenhagen,
No.
Senator Hoffman,
Yes.
Senator Klein, Senator McEwen,
Yes.
Senator Rarick,
No.
Senator Weber.
All right, there being 6 yes votes and 5 no votes, the amendment is adopted. Next up, we have Senator McEwen joining us online. Senator McEwen.
Hi there. Thank you very much. Members, I have the A14 amendment that I would like to offer.
All right, Senator McEwen, would you like to go over the A14 amendment as staff is currently passing it out in committee?
Very good. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the opportunity to bring forward this A14 amendment. It includes the Heights Community Energy's request for a $3 million grant for funding through the Renewable Development Account. And this is based on, Mr. Chair, your Senate File 4730, which was heard in this committee and laid over on March 25th, but did not make it into the initial A3 amendment. I strongly believe that this request should be included in the omnibus bill since there are these RDA funds still available. The Heights geothermal system is exactly the kind of innovative community scale clean energy project the RDA was created to advance, uses innovative technology that was developed at the University of Minnesota. This is a high impact use of the RDA that will demonstrate how Minnesota can lead in community scale geothermal energy solutions while advancing affordability, resilience, economic development to St. Paul and the Metro. And Mr. Chair, members, we also have Luke Galswick, who is president and CEO of Evergreen Energy, who should be there present in the hearing room, who can speak to this request or answer any questions people have about the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator McEwen. Members, any other questions or comments? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, members. I have looked at the A14 and discussed it with both Senator McEwen and Senator Herr. To the questions earlier on the nuclear study, there is no deal with the House of Representatives of any kind on renewable development account spending. It's my intention as the author of the bill to include RDA spending. Whether members think this amendment should be adopted or not, it's a matter of your own discretion. But we are at an impasse with the House so far on renewable development account at all. This is $3 million extra. There was about $11 million extra if we approved the Senate version. So this does have room, Mr. Mueller. And with that, Mr. Chair, I guess members will just have to vote how they see it.
And thank you, Senator Frentz. Any other members' questions or comments? I'd encourage a yes vote on this. It's a once-in-a-generation redevelopment project on the east side of St. Paul, bordering my own district in Maplewood. I drive past it every day, every weekend, going to my parents' house. It's a great development for a much-needed area, and I think this will be good use of RDA funding, and I encourage a green vote. And with that, we'll take a vote on the amendment. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed say no.
No.
Aye.
The amendment is adopted. Any other member questions, comments, or amendments? I'll leave it back to you, Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. We've talked about this bill for most of a week. I believe it's the best effort of this committee, which has historically been bipartisan in passing bills out of here. I hope that we will consider the renewable development account positives, the effect on labor, rural co-ops, investor-owned utilities, and for the nuclear study. We're clearly going to have some more conversations. So for both Senator Dibble and Senator Matthews, to be continued. I'll be a yes vote on the underlying bill. Thank you, members.
All right. Any other members? Questions or comments? Senator Rarick.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I apologize for not being here last week when this discussion first happened, but I need to address an amendment that was adopted. And a comment was made when the amendment was offered that because, and we're talking about the plug-in solar, and if members remember the day that bill was heard, I was adamantly opposed. And a comment was made that because of the UL 3700 listing that's happened, that I was somehow okay with the bill. I have never made that statement. And Senator Matthews had my comments that he read here, stating very much that I was still not in favor of this bill, that we are way out in front of where we should be. We have not let the process go through. The UL listing just came out in January. And when you look at what that UL listing states, there is no product on the market today that meets that standard. And for us to think that we should pass this bill to send a signal that Minnesota is ready for plug-in solar is ridiculous at best. There is a process for electrical products to come forward, and we are still in the very beginning stages of that process. I spoke with Mr. Dean Hunter at the Department of Labor, who oversees the electrical licensing and codes division. He is bringing forward this issue to the State Board of Electricity to begin the discussions. And he has also submitted to the NEC and their code review to look into plug-in solar and how it will be dealt with this UL 3700 listing. And for us to think that we as a Minnesota legislature should get in front of that process, I don't understand. How am I supposed to sit here in this legislature and ever listen to anyone again in their own issue area that they've worked in, that they know intimately, who says, don't do this? Why would I listen to that when I am not being listened to here? I don't care if the full repeal of the nuclear moratorium were in this bill. If we include plug-in solar in this form, and one, it doesn't even have, when Senator Kupak worked with the co-ops and the munis for some language to say you must let us know that it's there. That's not in this amendment that was adopted. So we don't even have language that began to bring groups to neutral in this proposal. And we're supposed to accept that? I sure can't. As long as this language is in this bill, I will never support it. This is not safe. If you look at UL's own website right now, January 8th, 2026 is when they first came out with this UL 3700 listing. And if you know what the listing says, this idea of what we're marketing is that this can be plugged in to any typical outlet. That's what's out there right now. That's what's being sold. This UL listing does not allow for that. There is not one manufacturer that has had the time to look at this and develop any kind of a product that would meet this standard to go for review. But we're going to promote, as the testifiers that day said, we want to start promoting this here in Minnesota. There's not one product out there that can meet this standard. And there's not one product that's even remotely close to going through that review. And even if a product does, it still has no method in the National Electrical Code on how that installation will happen properly. There is no provision in UL for enforcement. I can put anything I want in that you have to hire a certified installer, or that it has to be in a proprietary outlet, which doesn't have a definition in National Electrical Code. But just because it has that UL listing doesn't mean that will be followed. Pulling an electrical permit so that an electrical inspector would come inspect the installation would. And we keep hearing from people, this is like a toaster, this is like a vacuum. Members, it is not. It is like a generator. And the National Electrical Code has very specific requirements on how you tie a generator into premises wiring. And for us to think we would put this in a Minnesota state statute to encourage this product to come to market here, that is beyond what we should be doing by far. I could go on and on, but I will not.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, Senator Rarick. You have my pledge to continue the conversation. I've been texting with IBEW. We want to put forth provisions that have passed the test and going through stakeholders. Senator Matthews did read into the record your comments. I think most members considered them important. I always defer to you as the electrician on the group, so this is my long-winded way of saying let's keep talking and maybe bring IBEW and some other voices to it. At this point, I don't have any formal opposition in the record to it, and so that colors my vote for today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Gruenhagen, Senator Matthews, Senator Gruenhagen. Senator Green, did you?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I didn't have my hand up either, but it seems like you called on me. I'll burn up some time. And I'm not going to distract too much from the actual topic here, but I see this all the time. We're not ready. And the chair just said we're not ready, but we'll just continue to talk. But in the meantime, let's pass the bill that is not only not workable, not passable in the other body, but obviously, according to the electrician in the committee, probably very, very dangerous. So why don't we fix it before we move it? It doesn't make sense to say, well, it needs to be fixed, but let's pass it on, and if maybe we'll fix it later, maybe we won't, but at least we're passing it. It's the old saying, let's do something even if it's wrong. We need to stop this, so I'll be a no.
All right, Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sounds like you were wanting one more Senator Gruenhagen speech about Green New Scam and scientists and all kinds of things. As a parting gift to you there, Mr. Chair, on your one of the last energy hearings. Members, appreciate the discussion that we've had on this bill. And Mr. Chair, I'm going to ask for a roll call on, I don't know.
Roll call being requested, a roll call will be given.
I don't know if we're voting on the amendment then bill, or if this is the equivalent of the final bill, but roll call on all the votes on this bill going forward. Members, the language in here, a lot of it's changed since last week, where we had a lot of work put in on this, and then it's not meeting the moment for the rising energy prices and the mandates and restrictions that have been put on by previous legislatures that are contributing to the rising energy costs. And there's just too much, oh, let's pass it, and then we'll keep talking, and we'll keep working on it, and it's not been a very smooth process like we've even had in previous years. It's been correctly pointed out, this committee has had a history of passing bills out on a bipartisan manner, at least for the committee portion of session, that was true. And when that work's been put in, we had a product that reflected that, and we had bipartisan votes for several years out of this committee. But in an era where we've got just rising costs, and we're not dealing with mandates and affordability and all of these things, I'm not in a position to be supporting this bill. And I do hope that the tie in the other body will make this body come back and make this a more bipartisan bill. And I understand that given the odd dynamic that we've got, you know, kind of a three-legged stool in this legislature, with our caucus also trying to contribute meaningful and priority pieces into policy. So we've had a lot of discussion on this. I'm sure it will continue as it moves forward, but I'm not in a position to be supporting this bill at this time, and hope that we'll deal with some of these problematic pieces that have been pointed out. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Matthews. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To the good senator from Mankato, Deb Bergen from Missouri, name of the, thank you very much. I heard it back there, Elizabeth. They raised an issue of the safety component that Senator Rarick has who is an IBEW electrician. And I hear you saying you want to talk to IBEW. I have some reservations if that plug and play is in this bill, and I'm sitting here scrolling through it, and I was like, you know, what part of it is in there? What assurances, if we don't have that fixed by the time it hits the floor, I don't know if I could support it. If Elizabeth Wayful and those guys have said, yep, because there is a safety concern that they've raised. Senator Rarick has raised it from a professional perspective too, and I hear you on IB. What kind of conversations have you been having with those folks I just mentioned?
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Senator Hoffman. We've talked with Senator Kupek, who's the original author of the bill, and had not any formal opposition yet. As of the last couple days, aware that the amendment was put on last week in committee, we asked for some more output. As we sit here today, there's still no formal opposition, but here's what I would say. Missouri River opposed, IBEW opposed is a very different matter if it's formally opposed, and I think I would agree with you that provision's got some challenges moving forward if that becomes clear. Now, I mentioned I had some text with IBEW. I would characterize them as not yet formally opposed to that provision, but that would obviously be a potential deal breaker for that provision.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, and I'm glad that's happening, because I think what this leads is a jurisdiction question that the state is, and we've done this before, where it's really the folks out in the federal level need to make a jurisdictional discussion about whether or not it fits the UL listing or the standards of how you be an electrical worker, right? And so I would like to get the conversation and hear your feedback from those folks as we move forward. And I hear you say to Senator Rarick, you have your word, and that's all we have in this place, and you're a man of your word, so I appreciate you saying that.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Hoffman. We got to depend on each other here. One of the things we have tried to promote in this committee is that if there's a major stakeholder who's opposed, it makes it awfully tough to move ahead and pass it. So we've created a distinction between a stakeholder that's fully opposed and one that's neutral. Think the 2040 100% bill, where MREA was one of the last groups to come forward and say they were neutral on the bill, and they made some major changes at a stop like this. I think you may be seeing that with plug-in solar, and I will include Senator McEwen, who's talked to me about her amendment and did make a change, essentially saying it has to comply with UL listing to be safe. I think Senator Rarick's point is there is no such product at this point. And then I would say, if that's true, and I'm not a manufacturer, that suggests that this language would not allow any products yet in Minnesota for plug-in solar. But to be continued, Senator Hoffman. Thank you.
Senator Gruenhagen.
I do have a question for the author. We've been told at the beginning of this meeting that we're going to lose $7 billion in Green New scam funding. Okay. And I just don't see anything in this bill to address that. and including the repeal of the 2040, which is what should be done absolutely. But, you know, Minnesota's driving in a direction of this so-called clean energy, which I consider to be dirty energy by the time we got to clean up these windmills and solar gardens. And we're going to lose $7 billion. It's just like driving blindly with a car right off a cliff. Or what are your thoughts about addressing that loss of funding? I mean, it's obviously going to have a huge impact in the future on this state.
Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Gruenhagen. First of all, the federal government's decision to cut funding for wind and solar, I think, is a mistake. And I'll go on the record right now as saying that's not helping people in Sibley or Nicollet County pay their electric bills. It is directly sending us the wrong way. They're making that energy more expensive at a time when it's now shown to be less expensive. So that's my answer. This bill doesn't have $7 billion for a target. If I had a $7 billion energy target, I would come up with some other stuff, which I'll tell you about next hearing. But I'm happy to talk about affordability, and some of the renewable energy stuff does seem to me to open a way to save money, including geothermal, where in certain places in Minnesota, we think we can do it for less. We also have the support of working men and women, including not just IBEW, but labor. We want to put them to work. Those working hours help us make people more able to afford their lives. And members, happy to have you join me in the discussions about an energy target. We see some other chairs on this committee. We can ask for a target, we just can't always get it. So thank you, Senator Gruenhagen.
Senator Gruenhagen.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, members, and if citizens are listening in the state of Minnesota, we're already at 36% of our citizens who can't or barely pay their electricity bill. I know Senator Frentz believes solar and wind bring the rates down. There's plenty of experts who completely disagree and plenty of evidence. Look at New Jersey, look at California. Everything, it's going to create rolling blackouts at the worst possible time. And for us to just continue down this path blindly when we're going to be losing $7 billion of federal funding, quite frankly, is just, I don't want to say a word that, let's put it this way. I completely disagree. We should be preemptively addressing that and getting rid of some of this green new scam stuff, which, you know, you look at Europe, some of the nations who've gone down this green new scam are hurting the worst. And we're going to find ourselves in a similar situation for our farms, our businesses, and our citizens at the worst possible time. So, you know, well, anyway, I don't think I'm voting for this bill, in case you wondered.
Senator Frentz. All right, and with that, staff will begin the roll.
Chair Frentz,
Yes.
Senator Zhang,
Yes.
Senator Matthews,
Did you call me? Sorry.
Senator Matthews,
No.
Senator Dibble,
Yes.
Senator Green,
No.
Senator Gruenhagen,
No.
Senator Hoffman,
Yes.
Senator Klein,
Yes.
Senator McEwen,
Yes.
Senator Rarick,
No.
Senator Weber.
No.
All right, on the motion of Senator Frentz, Senate File 4504, as amended to be recommended to pass and be referred to Committee on Finance, the vote there being 6 yes votes and 5 no votes, the motion passes. All right, and then handing the gavel back to Senator Frentz.
Thank you, members. Thank you, folks, for your patience as we went through the bill. That is the end of the agenda today. We do anticipate informational hearings in committee, and we certainly anticipate some additional conversation as this bill goes to finance. With that, the Minnesota Senate Energy, Utilities, Environment, and Climate Committee is adjourned.